It's great to have you all here. And while this is being recorded, it's also on Facebook Live. Welcome, Kelly. Hi. Great to see you and great to have your added voice, especially on the, you'll be able to contribute a lot in terms of the agribusiness perspective on the continent and worldwide. Hi, Sue. Great to have you here as well. Hi, Aiden. Look forward to having you with us.
Can you hear me, Zaynah?
Room.
Can
Hi.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Jenny. I know that you had connected earlier and you're back. Good to see you back. Hey, Trevor.
Hey, Zaynah, how are you?
Yeah, good. Great to see you, Trevor. The reason that this wisdom conversation could even happen because of the connection you made. I think we just need to mute everyone, please. Mary and Zomo, hi.
Hi, Zaynah. Long time.
Are we able to see you?
Yes. Let me see.
Okay. So
working from home.
Yeah, so Mary and Zomo is actually the counterpart of Immaculate Maina in Trans Nzoia County, and she actually heads all the county ministers, the committee of all the county ministers for agriculture. So it is so awesome to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Zaynah.
Good to see you. Welcome to the Uruguay Africa Chamber of Commerce. Gonzalo, welcome. We're just waiting for a few people to connect, and then we'll begin. And as that's happening, we can interact with one another, as is the true style of our wisdom conversations. Welcome, Raymond, Marissa from Stoller, Ezra. Glad that you got the time right. I know that you were asking us about that. Welcome. Norma, Antonio, welcome. Crystal, great to see you. Pamela and Beate, welcome. Horacio, welcome. Celeste.
How are
Thank
you?
For being here. We're very well. Horacio, where are you joining us from?
Yes, my name is Horacio from Argentina. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Hi, Hugh. We'll start at 5 minutes past 4. It's just to give people time to get used to the links and the password. Some people are writing to us regarding that. We can see Safea. You're connecting to audio, but we can see you waving at us. Welcome. And Nicolas, thank you for being here. Nkumisa, thank you for joining. Catherine.
Sorry, good morning. Good morning, all. I'm from Argentina. Thank you.
Good morning. Oh, we have a group of women from Stoller. So Vanessa, I'm sure that they have your invitation. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, Renee. Hi, Nikki and Marissa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, welcome to South Women, everyone. We'll begin. Was that Mousy I saw? Hi, Mousy.
Hi.
We'll begin the presentation so that as people join, they can just be part of the audience. I will begin by sharing screen. Oh, Dwayne, I think you've disabled our participant screen sharing. Well, that's what it's saying, unless I'm not co-host yet.
You're good to go now.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Welcome everybody to this South Women Wisdom Conversation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are and why you are here. Who is South Women? We are an international network positioning women and men from the global South as visionaries, strategists, implementers, and collaborators of what we call conscious cooperation and impact. And South Women emerged from a South Business Summit in Argentina in 2017, in which Merging Mundos, the company who organized the summit, observed that less women than men and women with equal capacity and equal resources, less women than men were engaging in business, investment, and enterprise together across the global South. And so South Women was established to fill that gap. And our wisdom conversations in which you are participating today are monthly on the third Wednesday of every month, designed to create connections across cultures and across continents through sharing of authentic experiences, both professional and personal. And through that, inspire new thinking and new action. Our values, which were created by 10 women from the global South and the global North, all of them trailblazers in their diverse sectors and influencers in their communities, including who we have here today, one of our guest speakers, Immaculate Maina, Honorable Immaculate Maina, including Kelly Aburi, who is here with us today, including Andrea Groboko-Patel, and I know she's not here, but her networks are represented in this conversation. We all came together and identified the values which would guide how South Women operates across cultures and across continents. And that's inclusion, that's acceptance, and that's honor. And honor was so important to us that we designed a set of standards, which we call our code of honor, and it defines how we operate for business and how we operate in relationships with one another and with the environment. The commitment of South Women is to betterment of all people and to impact. And so you can see that these will be the principles that we uphold, even as we talk about how do we want to do business in or with Africa, or how does Africa want to do business in or with other parts of the world. It's really a standard by which we choose to live our daily lives and by which we choose to operate. So you are here today for Rethinking Enterprise, doing business or agribusiness specifically with Africa. I am Zaynah Khanbhai. I am the founder of South Women, and I am also the founding director of Merging Mundos. I am Kenyan, I am African, and Merging Mundos is the company, as I mentioned before, that established South Women. And it's also represented today by Justo Casal from Argentina, whom I met in Buenos Aires in 2014. And he started to make his moves on me straight away. I mean, we were both single at the time, and I could tell that there was a little bit of a vibe. And well, he can tell you his side of the story in another wisdom conversation, but he started to put the moves on me. And so I asked him, if you want to spend more time with me, tell me, what is your purpose in life? And without flinching, he says, food for the world from Africa. So here we are today, married, and at this wisdom conversation, rethinking enterprise, doing agribusiness with Africa. A South Women and Merging Mundos collaboration with the Institute of Law and Economics, Jamaica. This is the second iteration of the collaboration. The first one last year focused on demystifying cultural stereotypes as a way to open up the path for engaging in business. And some of you were likely at that conversation, and I welcome you back to this one. So what's the objective of today? Today, we want to provide you with all the information you may need to make informed choices about investing in agribusiness in Africa with Africans. And this will happen through the expertise and interaction of people from East, South, and West Africa, so that you gain perspective of the entire continent. What we also want to do is to provide you with a platform before leaving this wisdom conversation, provide you with a platform for the way ahead in Africa for your impact. So I hope that the objectives of today are clear for you. And this is how the program will run. We'll have presentations, breakout rooms in which you interact directly, ask your questions, and then we'll have a plenary, come back into plenary for the way ahead. And before we go into that, I just wanted to share with you that at Merging Mundos, our expertise is in opening, establishing, and accompanying new markets for companies. And I want to start with a question for you as we go into this conversation. What is your objective for doing business or agribusiness in Africa? And you can share with us on the chat. Because the market approach will align according to your objective. Whether that objective be creating a legacy project, or enhancing your profit, or expanding into a new market in the world, or engaging in philanthropy. There could be more, but the market approach will depend on what your objective is. And it's always good to have an idea of what that could be. And as you perhaps think about sharing your objectives, the second aligned question with that is, we're all here from different countries, from different parts of the world. We have all grown up exposed to different cultures. So what are your company and your national values, your company values, and perhaps you have values that you experience on a national scale, on a country scale, that will help you to facilitate your relationships with people in Africa. Because fundamentally, there may be differences, but we always find that there are more similarities. And those similarities occur through shared value systems. And that's why we ask you to think a little bit about what are your objectives for doing agribusiness in Africa, and what values do you believe your company or your country bring to the table to facilitate being with people. And I say this because we've noticed through our experience that there are some principal misperceptions or misconceptions that primarily foreign investors in Africa have. And I'll share some of those with you. The first one could be, or is, the closer my connection to the president of the country, the easier doing business will be, or the greater my chances of success. False. Second misperception, Africa is fast money. It is corrupt and I can bribe my way around. False. The third, Africa needs everything. False. The fourth, I can enter the market without having to invest a coin or even a minimum amount, perhaps because labor is cheap and my idea is really grand. False. The next, that Africa is one culture. At our fundamental essence, yes. However, in generality, false. And the final one, because I have an idea and I am bringing money, local trust in me is implicit. False. So I wanted to share this with you from our perspective. So from the very beginning of the conversation, you have an idea for yourself, because we're all human beings, that if there's anything to demystify within that you now can begin to do that for yourself. What I can also share with you is that we know from our experience what the guarantees for successful business in Africa are. And we refer to those as the 5 Ps. The first P is patience. We have a good friend in South Africa who's a wildlife conservationist, and he says to us, the Swiss may have invented the clock, but the Africans invented time. So the first P, patience. The second P, perseverance. The Ubuntu philosophy of oneness states that we are here with a purpose, not a deadline. So know that things will happen, but they will happen on African terms in African time. The third, presence. Regardless of whether you choose to travel to the continent to conduct your business, or you choose to do this more and more digitally now, your presence is verified on the continent through credible and reliable local partners on the ground. And this will be a must no matter what. The fourth, people. Partnerships and production in Africa is for and with African people, and especially our young people. And the fifth P, which we'll be hearing more about, is policy. Now, working as private sector and foreign investors requires an alignment with the framework for local policy. And these are the 5 Ps that we have identified as fundamental to doing successful business on the continent. So with that, I would like to welcome you all to this wisdom conversation. We have Present today, participants from the agricultural sector, including leading producers, people involved in value addition and other forms of production. We have participants from the investment sector, government officials, foreign diplomatic service members from different parts of the global south, chambers of commerce representatives. We have members of the African diaspora, and we have people with an ancestral and heritage connection to the motherland. And I'm sure that we are currently participating from at least 10 different countries around the world. So welcome today, and let's get started. And to do that, I will also, I would like to invite Dr. Rosalie Hamilton, the founding director at the Institute of Law and Economics, Jamaica, to welcome you. Dr. Hamilton is also, besides being someone I have the great pleasure and an honor of having collaborated with, the CEO of the Lasco Chin Foundation, Vice President at the University of Technology, Jamaica. She's a board director for Lasco Manufacturing Limited and National Integrity, which is a corruption watchdog organization. She's also the chair of the Caribbean Philanthropic Alliance. And I choose to share this with you so that you understand the value of what we're bringing to this wisdom conversation. She was awarded the Scotiabank Chair in Entrepreneurship and Development in 2008. It was the professorship for that chair. And she has also served as special advisor and trade policy consultant in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, and as chief advisor to the Prime Minister of Jamaica in 2006. So welcome, Dr. Rosalie Hamilton.
Thank you so much, Zaynah. It's really a pleasure to be here. And by the way, I'm no longer vice president at the university.
Okay.
I've moved on, right? Now, you know, I'm so excited to be here because this forum brings together two dreams I've had as a young Pan-Africanist from the Caribbean. The first dream is this idea of a united Africa. Uniting Africa. And at the time, I didn't think all of this was possible. But by 2000, we saw a legal framework in place, the Constitutive Act of the African Union. And it was launched in 2002, 55 African countries coming together, 1.2 billion people. Amazing for us in the diaspora, in the Caribbean diaspora. And very importantly, the protocol on the amendments of the Act in 2003 that invited and encouraged the full participation of the African diaspora as an important part of this continent is simply awesome. And so we, as the 6th region of Africa, we find this amazing. I mean, I also noted this, and I'll bring this to your attention, the idea that the African diaspora is so diverse, goes all the way back to that genetic memory of, primordial diaspora back. All of us are connected to Africa. That's amazing. And there we are, the Atlantic diaspora, and our ancestral memory real to many of us. I recently did my DNA test and I found that I'm linked to Angola and the Cameroon, and I am just so excited that the links are there, and we feel a part of Africa. And I took note that in 2012, the AU agreed to 5 legacy projects, and it included the idea of encouraging civil society in the diaspora and Africa to support and advocate and mobilize resources for the development of Africa. So all of these are very important points, and I'm raising it because some of us in the diaspora perhaps are not aware of this amazing development. The 5 legacy projects, here they are: skills-based database, volunteer core, investment fund, remittances, and very importantly, and very linked to what we're doing today, a development of a marketplace for the diaspora as a framework for facilitating innovation and entrepreneurship. And so that's where I locate our doing agribusiness in Africa. My second dream, a direct flight from the Caribbean to Africa. Amazing. The fact that this happened just last year is mind-boggling. The first direct flight from Africa to the Caribbean, from Ghana, carrying a number of nurses to Barbados. This took place in July last year. And in December, Jamaica is not about to be undone here. We had the first flight from Nigeria. The Nigerian airline Air Peace had this historic flight carrying 132 Nigerian passengers from Lagos to Montego Bay. And guess what? Next week, another historic flight will take place. Jamaicans will fly direct to the continent, to Lagos, on May the 25th, 21. And I'm so excited because I'm on that flight. So I just couldn't miss it. So I say all of this because I think the success of African diaspora investment and trade and entrepreneurship, as fostered by these direct flights, must be fueled by addressing the knowledge gap. We don't know a lot about Africa in terms of what products you have, what we can buy and so on. And I want all of Africa to know that we have the best ginger in Jamaica, we have the best coffee, the best rum, Appleton rum, and the best rums of the Caribbean. Let me not make my friend Jenny is here from Barbados, my Mount Gay rum, you know, all of these rums. We know we have the best in the world and we want Africa to know this, right? So this conversation is trying to address that gap and more, because we want agribusiness owners to not only acquire the knowledge, but to actively explore new trade, investment, development, and empowerment opportunities in Africa as a key strategy for transforming our economies that have been devastated by the COVID pandemic. I mean, that's real. Our economies are in a mess. And we want trade that's fair and mutually beneficial. We want investment that enhances innovation. We want development that's sustainable, that can enable us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal. And ultimately, we want the empowerment of our people, empowerment that builds the capacity to transform the lives of our people. So let me move on. I know we have a lot to say. I want to thank you all for coming and really look forward to an exciting presentation.
Thank you so much, Rosalie, for contextualizing the Caribbean perspective within the context of this conversation. And there are so many exciting new developments, which I hope we can build upon together. I'm sure you'll be sending us photos when you
Absolutely.
in Jamaica.
Actually, we're doing a live broadcast from there. One of our local stations are coming. So it's all very exciting for us.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I would now like to introduce to you or formally begin the Doing Agribusiness with Africa presentation with East Africa, which will happen at the hands of the Honorable Dr. Immaculate Maina, who is the County Minister for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries in Nakuru, Kenya, one of the largest agricultural producing counties in the nation. I believe the other one is Trans Nzoia, who is also represented by their County Minister, Mary Nzomo. An agricultural producer herself, Honorable Dr. Maina is a widely published expert in agri-food systems, gender and development, rural innovations, policy development, and implementation. And I'm going to do the sharing screen for her so that she can focus on what she wants to share with us on the policy angle more concretely. Immaculate, I don't see you, and I'm wondering if you're unmuted and if you can see the screen. There we go. You can see the screen, correct? So you'll just guide me when to change slides.
Fine, let's go to the first slide where we have the title. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this conversation. It's an exciting time for us to discuss matters of policy and how it affects agribusiness in Kenya. And Kenya will be a good representation of what may happen in many other parts of Africa. So today I want to talk about policy, in how public policy creates value opportunities for agribusiness. I take the example of Kenya, but like I've said, Kenya will represent many other places in Africa. On my second slide, I'll be introducing Nakuru County, where I happen to be in charge of agriculture, livestock, and fisheries. And in Nakuru County, we have a population of about 2.1 million people. We're very close to Nairobi City, and we have many opportunities around health, around tourism, in agriculture, in education. The reason why I thought I should show this slide is that Nakuru County could be any part in Africa. For those that are not familiar with the structure of government in Kenya, we are organized into regional governments, or what we call counties, and Nakuru is one of the 47 counties of the nation of Kenya. And so in discussing the realities of policy around Nakuru, I feel that we'll be talking for many other such spaces across Africa. Next, please. So what are you talking about when you talk about policy and public policy for that matter? I would say that when you talk about public policy, these are the authoritative statements or actions that governments may take and which reflect the decisions, the values, or the goals of such policymakers. Indeed, it is a sum total of government activities, whether they are pursued directly or through agents, that influence the lives of the citizens in any of the spaces that government is in charge of. It is a combination of the basic decisions, the commitments, and the actions made by those who hold or affect government positions of authority. And agriculture policy is one such public policy. Next, please. So why is it important? It's important that public policy is well understood in the sphere of agribusiness, because all policies will be problem-centered. It is those statements that try to address specific problems that affect persons within particular spaces within our areas of jurisdiction. It's also important to note that while policies are based on scientific methods, we try very much to convince stakeholders and to try to rely on objectivity. However, policies are also normative. They're not completely objective. It's also a value judgment to the way that policy is made. So it's a combination of art and craft and persuasion to try and bring on board all the interest groups, including those may lose when we make a policy, because in each policy, there'll be gainers and there'll be losers. Mm-hmm. And therefore you find that policy making is a very multidisciplinary space. With good policy making, it will incorporate the ideas of different fields, the economists, the sociologists, the biologists, and so on and so forth. And in this mix, then the question we need to answer is, as an agribusiness, an agri-entrepreneur, or a person involved in agribusiness, how does this affect what I intend to do? Next, please. So, when you think about public policy in agribusiness, there has to be a basis upon which such policy is made. For much of what is Africa, we as policymakers will be grappling with how can we enhance the untapped agricultural potential on our large tracts of land, our good soils, a good rainfall. We'll be looking at policies that would help us enhance our capacities to do better. We'll also be looking at policies that help us to readily use our labor, the youthful labor that we have. Those are skilled, labor that is also unskilled. So we'll be looking at policies to try and bring that together for the betterment of the lives of those persons. Most policies in Africa will also be trying to understand how better to enhance our low levels of agro-processing and agro-industry. It's also true that many policies across Africa try to deal with our large populations and how those large populations can maximize on the market potential for goods and services, both within the country and those that may come from outside of the country. Africa continues to struggle with an increased food demand, which is linked to our demographics. We are a young continent. We have lots of, our growth trajectory is very high. Please go back, Zaynah. Our growth trajectory is very high. And so the other area of public policy is how to deal with increased food demand. We also work around issues of consumption. The population is changing, our consumption patterns are changing, and that is also related to a rising net food import. Broadly, these are areas upon which many policies in Africa will be working around. Next, please. So when we say that governments across Africa, and even in Kenya, what are we doing to try and deal with those matters and to try and encourage trade into our spaces? One of the things that's happening in many parts of Africa and in Kenya specifically, we continue to simplify our procedures for starting businesses, including online systems for business registration. And herein I've given in a link. If you want to invest in Kenya, you hit on that link, you'll get a lot of information of what needs to be done. Many regimes have gone on to look at how they can lower the fees on permits, and also how they can adapt the taxation regimes to enhance business, to create a better business environment. We've seen many policies around property registration, enforcing contracts, improving reliability of power supply, including alternative power, geothermal, hydropower, and so on. We've seen laws around social security systems and also credit to business. Please go on. Therefore, an investor coming to Africa requires to do certain things. There's need for an investor to do due diligence on certain matters. Once you choose your area of investment, it's important that we look at what are the requisite licenses. How do you hire and fire your workers? How do you register property? How can you obtain credit? How do you protect your investment? How do you enforce your contract? What are the entry regulations into that particular segment of the industry? What is employment regulation? Rights and credit, corporate governance, rules on imports and export, court efficiency, taxes, bankruptcy, and regulation of property transfers. This would be a few or some of the things that any investor would have to consider when they're thinking about doing business in Kenya and around Africa. I think it provides for us a background information to what you want to get into and how you would want to get it done better. Next, please. In the Kenyan policy landscape, I've broken it into this table. It's quite busy, but it shows the agribusiness investment opportunities across the whole landscape. If you are interested in the area of environment and environmental services, investment opportunities will be in the area of land use, water conservation, irrigation, soil conservation, landscape restoration, climate change, and so on and so forth. In the area of knowledge, there's biotech, there's research, technology, extension, capacity building, information, and the digital space. If you go straight into production, the opportunities in seeds and fertilizer and the whole system of inputs, the mechanization, pests and diseases, productivity, subsidies, production systems, trade, all manner of issues around SPS, domestic trade, international market, warehousing. For consumers, if you want to work directly with the people, there are matters of nutrition, availability of food, safety of food, cost of food, and so on and so forth. And on financing, people can focus on credit, funding, commodity funds, insurance, climate funds, and so on and so forth. So for me, and in the Kenyan landscape, this provides a whole arena of opportunities that you can unpack in this area and be able to invest in. Each one of these areas has certain policy statements affecting it. And as an investor, these are areas you can unpack and then get on with your investment. Please go on. Thank you for listening.
I think we can demonstrate our appreciation for that very informative and comprehensive and precise overview from everyone's perspective. Thank you so much, Honorable Maina, and we will be saving all the questions and answers for the breakout session where you will actually be able to take up with her and the other speakers specifically any matters that you want to raise. I think that that has given a really good foundation to anyone considering how to enter the African or the Kenyan or East African market space. So thank you so much for that. And I would now like to invite from South Africa, Vanessa Moodley. She is a renowned published research and development expert, pioneering significant breakthroughs for integrating soil biology into overall soil health and agronomy. And her focus is product development, especially biotechnology for sustainable farming practices. She is the head of marketing at Stoller South Africa, which in itself is a multinational company present in 70 countries around the world and 15 in Africa. So welcome, Vanessa. And please go ahead.
Hi, Zaynah. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm glad to be speaking in alignment with Gusto's purpose today, and that is feeding the world from Africa. And I must say, Zaynah, I have to agree with you that that purpose in life is certainly grand enough to win over a girl's heart. So well done. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. And it's such an auspicious day for me today because I feel like you know, this day couldn't have come sooner for all the stakeholders to come together to speak about, you know, production in Africa and the future of Africa. And in line with that, I'll be speaking about production in Africa, and I'll be touching briefly regarding the picture of trade within Africa. So let's just look at Africa at a glance. Firstly, Africa comprises of about plus minus 33 million family farms of less than 2 hectares. And this accounts for approximately 80% of the farms. It's interesting to also note that only 3% of these farmers have more than 10 hectares. And as you know already, large-scale farming was developed on the basis of specialized production, essentially for export purposes, and then in Southern Africa, and especially in South Africa, it's really prominent. So the really powerful statement here is at the moment that Africa has approximately 60% of the world's uncultivated land. Now that statement is massive, and if you can just sit back a little bit to take that in, already you will start to see the opportunity. The picture on the right is just a high-level picture for you to have a look at. The yellow graph highlights the current cultivated arable land, and the green bar highlights the potential. And as you can see, especially in Southern Africa, the potential is certainly expansive. So we've looked at Africa, and seeing that I come from South Africa, we have to add context in that, right? So in South Africa, the most important crop is maize. We cultivate approximately 23 million hectares. We have an average rainfall of 460 millimeters, which can be considered as semi-arid. Our maize yield is approximately 4.9 tons per hectare, whereas the Africa average yield is around 2 tons and mostly sitting below. What's interesting here and different to the rest of Africa is that commercial farmers in South Africa produce up to 95% of the maize. But that's not really going to mean much to you if I don't put it into perspective and compare that to another country. So I randomly chose Angola, and just to show some quick comparisons with you. A reason being is because we also plant around the same amount of maize. As mentioned, what the South African yield is, but have a look here at the Angola yield. They're sitting at 0.8 tons per hectare. Now in agriculture, an important component to understand here is rainfall. The biggest limiting factor with yield would be rainfall. So Angola has approximately 1,200 millimeters per rain. Obviously, that's far above what South Africa averages. However, as you know, Angola also has a tropical area. So comparing apples with apples, if we look at the maize producing areas, they also have similar amount of rainfall than us. On bananas, for example, they produce way more than South Africa. However, have a look at their yield, 29 tons versus 59 tons with South Africa. Dry beans, they're sitting with huge potential with 800,000 hectares. However, considerably lower on the yield. On potatoes, we sort of fare the same. And this for me is just mind-boggling. So on potatoes, we harvest on average 36 tons per hectare, whereas Angola, 6. So the interesting thing here is not that one is bad and one is good. What we have to put into context here is population, for example. Angola has 29 million people and South Africa has 56 million people. However, with just 29 million people, they are essentially looking at importing approximately 80% of their cereals and horticultural crops. That is staggering. If you look at the fertilizer use, on average, they use 5 kgs per hectare, and the African average is 11 to 16. So that would be one very important component why their productivity is so low. And again, general and typical African scene with the small scale farmers and mostly owned by families. Okay, so this is really interesting work which I came across at a conference in Barcelona in 2019. And a group of scientists from Wageningen University of Nebraska, are funded by the Bill Gates Foundation. And what they've come up with is something called yield gap analysis. And they've mapped most of the world except Africa. But the good news is they are looking at Africa. So you can go to this website. It's really nifty. And you could go and choose whatever you want to look at. So in this case, what I've looked at is actual yield of cereals. So the actual yield, as you can see depicted by the purple shades, is around 1 to 2 tons per hectare. If we have to go to potential yield on this based on rainfall, again, as mentioned by limiting factors, you would see Ethiopia, for example, is really sitting on the high end here, between 12 and 13 tons. So can you imagine, this is still under rain-fed conditions, and this is the potential for Africa, really phenomenal. So that's a high-level view for you, right? I don't want you to get confused with the numbers because I'll guide you with it. So it's a similar numbers, but here we've got sub-Saharan Africa in general, West and East Africa. And this is from a really good paper published recently as well. What I want you to focus here is on the nutrition on these lands. So you could see here, the nitrogen is extremely low for the agronomists and my colleagues sitting in the room. You can speak to them later. And one would imagine how can we actually produce to feed a nation based on these values. Okay, so again, to put it into context for you, what does this mean? So if we have to look here, the same scientist has put together a model which I've adapted and simplified. And essentially, this is the current yield that Africa, West Africa and East Africa is at, and that's 2 tons per hectare. And this would be the target for West Africa, and this would be the target for East Africa. So essentially sitting at 4 tons and close to 5 tons. So what this scientist and this simulation model is actually saying, for us to achieve this target, we're going to have to move from this line of below 20 kgs of nitrogen input, for example, reaching over 80 kgs per hectare. So this is the nutrition it's going to take for us to meet that target yield. And it's just mind-boggling to see where we're currently sitting at with something as basic. So for Africa, and it's not often that we use this word in sustainability, but it certainly is more with more. And if you're speaking to someone who's sitting in the UK or someone in China, for example, their philosophy will be to produce more with less. But for Africa, it's certainly a more with more phenomenon. So, and where does the opportunity lie here for Africa and in line with feeding the world through Africa? So this is the global picture. What we have here is the arable land per capita, and you would essentially look at it from 1961 to 2011, and you could see that it is plummeting. The compound annual growth rate is sitting at negative 1.6%. And why is this so? Because we are using the land unsustainably. We don't treat it right, and we certainly don't have the right production practices. However, in line with that, a really important component is traditional chemicals, which are now reaching their maximum performance, and they are, plants, insects, diseases are building up resistance towards these chemicals, and therefore our production starts to drop over time as we reach the maximum of what we can do. In the same breath, this presents a great opportunity for Africa to be able to meet this demand. So, still in line with sustainable agriculture. So in the past, as you know, without biotechnology, as Immaculate mentioned, without genetics, without traditional herbicides, etc., we were farming at a really low, genetic level, with just 52% or so. And then came along science, and this is where we are now. This is today. So we've reached essentially that genetic potential of the plant. All right, so what science is saying and what the FAO is saying is that if we want to be able to feed, say, 9 billion people by 2030 or 2040, we are going to have to look at sustainable technologies, smart products, plant physiological products, plant biological products, technologies such as satellite imaging, predictive analysis, that kind of thing. Now, the point that I want to make here and emphasize is that I feel that Africa is still here. As I've just demonstrated to you, our basic nutrition is not up to spec. So the opportunity lies with us already being on the at the forefront to combine nutrition with the sustainable options together, so that we don't end up with a situation where our lands are degraded and reaching that full genetic expression of our plants. So this is for those of us that often constantly think that biology is the way to save the world. It's not always the most sustainable way to go if you're living in Africa and you have 2 billion people to feed in 20 years from now. So this is just some research that I want to demonstrate to you. So as you can see here, if you use 0 nitrogen and 0 phosphate, this is essentially your grain yield, and that's your organic carbon. If you increase that to higher volumes, your organic carbon increases as your grain yield. This last part here is showing you that if you combine that with something like farmyard manure, which is something that us Africans would have access to, you actually have the biggest impact on improving sustainability from an organic carbon point of view, from enriching your soil from a biodiversity point of view, and gaining the benefit of yield. So I'm really passionate about this, and I hope that we get to speak about it later, because I feel there's a huge misconception that when people talk about inorganic nutrient forms, they often think that it's unsustainable. However, to have that and improve productivity, you increase the root mass of your soils, you increase the carbon cycles. There actually is a positive spin-off. However, you have to do this in a calculated way and a sustainable way. So this slide moves on to the trade, and I get to close to the end of my presentation. And I don't want you to read anything here. It's not to give you lots of detailed information. This is to give you a very unpleasant surprise. So as you can see here, this is the import quantity of our African countries, and these are the partner countries. When I downloaded this from FAO website, firstly, the FAO website could not download all of the imports that Africa actually does. I had to do it in segments. And when I tried to put it on the slide, you could see it just surpasses it. If I had to put here all of the imports that Africa does, I'd be sitting here the entire afternoon. So the point is that Africa still remains a net importer of food. And this filter was set at just 100,000 tons. So to me, it's quite sad that we're the continent that's really sitting with all of this beautiful, uncultivated arable land, and we're still depending on the world. The other thing that saddens me here is if you can look at our partner countries that we're importing from, you would see that it's just few and far between. We have South Africa sitting here with maize and wheat, and then the rest is the USA, Europe, etc. So if we look at the exports, when I set the filter at 100,000 tons, colleagues, this was it, versus the imports that was just running over pages. So here you could see that the top exporters, Cote d'Ivoire, really doing well on cocoa beans going into Europe, Southeast Asia, Egypt, and I'm really proud to also have here South Africa doing really well on fruit, on maize, and here we have Tanzania as well, partnering with Kenya, which is really good, and that's based on maize. So in closing, I'd like to say that we understand why this is so, and that's because we have a lack of policies. We generally have weaker infrastructures. We also have, well, most importantly, actually, low and staggering productivity on our lands. However, I think the opportunity here, Zaynah, really lies firstly in our knowledge, in our land, in our water, our other resources, but very importantly in our men and in our women. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. That first, you are a phenomenal presenter, and that all came together in such great context for us, a beautiful complement to Immaculate's presentation, and I know a very good entry point into what Fomba will now be speaking about. But you have clearly raised and demonstrated the opportunities and the abundance of opportunities that this continent has, and lessons that we could probably take from within the continent, like South Africa, on what's working, why it's working, apply them and invite people from outside of Africa to participate in a process of growth, doing more with more and together. And this is exactly the platform that this wisdom conversation wanted to provide. Thank you so much. And it is with pleasure now that I invite Fomba Y, not only because he is the only man speaking today, but also he is raised by a family of farmers who were women. He is a Fulbright scholar with over 8 years of professional experience in international agriculture and rural development, including projects with IFAD, the World Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank, both in Sierra Leone and in Liberia. And his expertise and passion is in integrating smallholder and corporate agribusiness in developing countries, working with government and the private sector on value chain development, and very importantly, financing technology and youth empowerment, because as Vanessa was saying, one of our most important resources are our people and our young people on the continent. Welcome, Fomba.
Thank you very much, Zaynah. Good morning, everyone from my end. I can see and know some other people are now in the afternoon or in the evening hours of their day. And I would like to recognize Professor Tutu from Sierra Leone, Sefa Tutu. He's right here with us. I'm glad that he's here. And so he's the master farmer and a professor as well. So my presentation will be a combination of practical experience, life experience, what I've learned over the years, and in alignment to what are the previous presenters just did, the policy and the productivity. So we have heard of policy, we have seen data on productivity, Now we are coming to see the practicality of those things. So you'll be hearing about opportunities for agribusiness in West Africa, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the other countries as well. Business models to drive those opportunities, financing, technology for smallholder farmers' participation. As we heard the previous presenters, these are some of the challenges. And then we'll come to see the real practical challenges and potential solutions for women in agribusiness. So just to put the presentation in context for West Africa, we have the economic opportunities for agribusiness investment in Africa. We have 16 countries, and out of that, we have about 5%, represent 5% of the global population, with 60% of that being young people between 15 to 24 years of age, which tells you that we are a very young population, very productive. And the biggest opportunity here is people often say Africa is poor, Africa is poor. But just look at West Africa, the market economic value of West Africa, $809 billion. Tell me if nobody will want to invest in this type of economy with a very young population. So the economic opportunity is there for investment in agribusiness in West Africa. And then if you look at the major crops that West Africa, we are focused on, number one is rice, which is the staple food for most West African countries. Then cassava, maize, vegetables, so you have the onions, the pepper, and all of that. And most of these things are between 60 to 70% imported into West Africa. So our productivity, I'm glad I did not see most of our productivity data from Vanessa there, because I was really going to be sad. But again, it's an opportunity to see what is happening. And then you look at the cash crops. So cash crop is an area where Sierra Leone is actually doing well, and Liberia too, with the intervention of the World Bank, the IFAD, and some other donor partners. So we are in cocoa, coffee, cashew nut, oil palm, plantain, banana, and pineapple. Livestock, we are focusing on poultry, cow, other people call it cattle, goat, sheep, or lamb, and pork. So with that type of investment, you need a business model. So oftentimes people want to go into agribusiness, but with no business model. And there is no way you can go into any business without having a business model, without having a focus. Like in the beginning or the introductory part aspect of this program, Zaynah talked about purpose. You must have purpose, and that purpose must be well defined, and it must align with the people partnership. So one model will be the public-private partnership, so which is government, private sectors. So government mostly are local government or central government. And then we have the public, we have the private, government, and community partnership. So you cannot invest in places where you only focus on government as a private investor. What about the community? The community owns their land. They own the resources. It's just that sometimes they don't control it based on the policies around. But if you really want to invest in agribusiness in West Africa and Africa as a whole, you must partner with the community through maybe contract farming, outgrower scheme, etc., etc. And then the last one will be on my plate for business model will be private and community partnership. So the second one there is a three-way approach: private, government, and community. And then if you don't want to get involved with government, there is a window where, as a private investor, just go to the community people. They are also part of local government, by the way. So partner with the local community and get involved into your business activities that you have identified to become sustainable. So this is my favorite part. Normally, I see this as an area where we really need to do something, and this is an area where opportunity lies in Africa. The finance, technology. So, what areas of finance are we really talking about? Input financing, production financing, processing financing, marketing as well, logistics. So logistic financing, transportation facility, warehousing, and all of that. Marketing, particularly for the women. They don't have money. I mean, normally women have asset, but they don't have access to money to really buy produce from farmers and sell to big companies, processing facilities. I mean, you can process without money. You need money. Of course, production, you need to do research and all of that. So, but even when you have the money, you need technology to maximize your productivity, to maximize your revenue, to maximize your profit at the end of the day. So research technology, input technology, seeds, fertilizer, production technology, farm machines, processing technology, marketing technology. So these things must be integrated and combined. So you see these pictures right here. The first one there, those machines you are seeing are power tillers and parts of tractors that were provided to farmers in a two-way, 50% grant and 50% loan by the government of Sierra Leone. And the young guy standing right here is the community bank manager. So we did this financing, this business model through community banks, community, government, and private partnership. So we did this through them, and that's the bank manager. The farmers are there, the women are there, their men are there, and the ministers are sitting right there. We did all the arrangement in front of everybody, very transparent, and all of that. And that's key in doing business in Africa, transparency. Challenges and potential solution for women in agribusiness. So, one of the challenges, high illiteracy level. So high illiteracy level in West Africa is still a big problem, which is limiting our competitiveness in the agribusiness sector and other sectors as well. Limited access to land. So the land is there, but the policy environment to promote access, needs to, some address there. Lack of access to certified seeds and fertilizer. We will say it over and over. Imagine people are planting one seed, certified seed, for 10 good years. So normally when I meet people, I tell them that, hey, how long have you been using this seed? 5 years, 6 years. You are recycling poverty. So access to certified seeds, fertilizer is a big challenge. Access to finance is another challenge. Access to farm production and processing technology is also a big challenge. But all these challenges are opportunities for investment for private investors. Potential solutions. So most times I will recommend community adult literacy program by investors. So these are some of the incentives, these are some of the give back to communities where they will benefit, and directly or indirectly, these are social benefit to communities. Educating our farming communities is a very good idea as an investor to really focus, not just giving money or focusing on the government. Land policy reforms is, that's something that we have to really focus on as well, to advocate, particularly for women in agribusiness. Promote private and community agro-input business models. Promote public-private community development finance investment. So we have to really focus in these areas, community development banks. How can we partner with this type of government and communities, private investors to implement this type of businesses in Africa, particularly in West Africa. Technology commercialization is also another great area where we can invest and finance women through that, like we have been doing. Create national and regional markets to link international markets. So like what Africa is now doing, the NAFTA that they just created, which headquarters is based in Ghana. So to summarize, and say thank you for your listening to me. You see these pictures right here. So this picture, right, the one above is one of the farm sites where we assisted some farming communities, women. We developed this swamp. This was like a rainforest swamp, mature swamp. So we have to rehabilitate it, develop it into a kind of irrigation system. So they will do their, cropping right around the year. But the biggest challenge, look at these people. They are harvesting with their hands. No machine, no harvester. So the post-harvest loss alone is discouragement. So you see some of the challenges that I was talking about. No processing machine, no harvesting machine, no storage facility. So these are all challenges. And so I want to thank you for listening to me. As Zaynah rightly said in the beginning, I did this presentation from a background where I grew up with my grandma. Unfortunately, I used to consider her to be my mom because I grew up where I've never seen the picture of my mom. I've seen a picture of a man, an old man, who normally they say, that's our father. So I know where me and my grandma, have been, from farm to farm, swamp to swamp, Sierra Leone to Liberia in the refugee camp, doing backyard gardens, selling from those backyard gardens, surviving. So I know money is in agriculture. No matter what the condition, no matter what the situation, it's just about connection, purpose, like Zaynah said, and family. So for me, Africa is a continent of family. Africa is a continent of purpose, and Africa is a continent of power. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fomba, for an incredibly powerful presentation, which truly gives everybody today, I believe, a complete overview of what is possible on the continent, and especially if we can take that collective power and put it into a process and structures that can start well from the beginning and grow from there. And this in particular for the people in the audience who are looking to Africa as the present and the future for all the objectives we had mentioned at the beginning. So thank you to all of you, to all our presenters, for really painting an accurate and realistic picture of what it means to do agribusiness in Africa. We were going to go into breakout rooms. However, we do feel, to keep it simpler and more interactive, that we could just keep it to one room and hear one another and hear the questions that anybody has to ask. And that way, collaboratively, also between the presenters, respond to the relevant questions. So I'm going to open up the floor now to questions, answers, and contributions. And I would like to say that we have several people within the audience who are highly qualified to respond to some of the questions that may arise. And that includes Aidan Brooke, who was supposed to be in our breakout session with us, who is a farmer who's also been in the banking industry, who's also done trading with commodities, and is now working to grow the soya bean industry in Kenya with the Syngenta Foundation. He had offered himself to the East Africa breakout room, but I think he'll be just as well represented and comfortable in the. So let me take it from here and ask you to please unmute your microphones for any questions, comments, any questions and comments.
So Zaynah, we also have Ambassador Sidike Kwai. He is the ambassador from the Republic of Sierra Leone to the United States, and he's also Secretary General of the ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. So I know Ambassador can't be with us for long, so perhaps he could just introduce himself, and if there are any questions around ECOWAS and what's happening in West Africa, perhaps he could do that before he has to leave.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for being here. And I know, Kelly, you'll go next. So Ambassador Y, thank you for being here, and please. So you seem to be on mute.
Let me unmute.
There we go.
Well, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be. And I'm here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. In another half an hour, I'm going to be flying to New York City on mission. So I did say to the distinguished professor, Dr. Rosalie, that in as much as I would like to stay, you can be in two places at the same time, but I thought it was important for me to actually join and commend you for the work you've done. Thank you, Madam Zaynah, for an incredible moderation of this panel. What my brother didn't say, I guess he didn't want to introduce me. He didn't even recognize me. So let me recognize my brother.
And you talked about Africa being about family.
Yes, and I am not part of his family, so he deliberately ignored recognizing me, but that's okay. That's another thing. But seriously, I have to commend the leadership the Caribbean is taking to not just wait for Africa to come to them, but to take the Caribbean to Africa. And you know, from the topic itself, rethinking about how to do business. Some of us are fortunate to sit where some of these decisions are made. And I just want to let you all know that you do have incredible advocates here in the nation's capital. 2 days ago, there was a major presentation by a member of the Biden administration, high-level person in the Biden administration. And they talked about the priorities of the United States, the vision of the administration towards Africa and the rest of the world. So I listened patiently. You know, there is also this thinking in several circles that the world begins and ends in the United States. In as much as we say so, but it is not so. The world is huge. When you look at Africa, you're talking about over 1 billion people. You're talking about in 2025, it will be the largest concentration of youth anywhere in the world. You're also talking about the Africa free trade. Once that is implemented, it becomes bigger than the World Trade Organization. You know, it always, when I talked to Dr. Rosalie, I said, well, you know, on our continent, how could we be sitting on gold, begging for gold? I just can't figure it out. Maybe you, the intellectuals, might be able to kind of figure that out. We really need to rethink, to reorient our thinking by finding new avenues of collaboration and cooperation. Africa has everything, but there's no value added to what we have. Our natural resources, people come, they take it, they leave. We have gold, diamonds, bauxite, rutile, iron ore. We don't have no processing plants in our countries. So they take the diamonds, they come, they take it out, and they take it to sell it to us. We can't even afford it. It's ours. And this brings me to agriculture. I am not an agriculture expert. I'll leave that to my brother and others. We have the best fertile land, sometimes you don't even need to put manure and all of these other stuff. You could grow things at the back. I know Dr. Rosalie has a garden in Jamaica. She doesn't have tractors. She grows things.
So, Ambassador, we're kind of running out of time. So I just wanted to.
I'm just saying, I'm going to leave. I'm going to shut up. But I really want to encourage you that within our group of African ambassadors, we are directly in alignment with what your thinking is. Let us work together, and we will do what we can to support this initiative. Agriculture is the only industry that I know that you could feed yourself and yet make money. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I know you've been busy, so thanks for being with us.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And actually, what the points you have raised today speak to the heart of every African or every person living on the continent currently. And our responsibility as South-South women in collaboration with the ILE, beyond this wisdom conversation, is actually to create those new avenues of collaboration. First, it will be through agribusiness, and there's a poll that we will be asking everybody to fill in about other areas of opportunity that will also align with the legacy of the African Union, that will align with the Sustainable Development Goals and objectives, but it must come as a result of the kinds of conversations that we are having here, which are truly wisdom-based, and that is what you've shared with us today. Thank you very much, and we do look forward to working with you in this process as a champion with a voice in the policy segment for Africa.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for taking your time to be here. Safari Njema, travel well. So I think Kelly wanted to say something, and then we have two questions, one directed at Vanessa and one directed at probably generally. So Kelly, do you want to go ahead? And then we will.
Yeah, okay. No, I first wanted to thank Vanessa and Immaculate and Fomba for their presentations. It's been 6.5 years since I worked in agriculture. Now I run a restaurant, and in kind of a way, I'm still in the food process. But it's been a long time. And I actually am a dairy specialist from my professional background before I retired and did the restaurant. And some of the things that all of you touched on, I spent years trying to bring to the table in many countries. I worked in 20 countries in Africa, but I've worked in around 65 countries globally, and mostly in the dairy sector. And one of the things, if you take South Africa as opposed to Kenya, if you look at East Africa, just for a starter, we produce more milk than Australia and New Zealand. But we're only harnessing 20% of that production. And yet this little country of New Zealand feeds the world, which is absolutely catastrophic for me, coming to Africa and seeing the abundance of agricultural supplies here. And yet a tiny country in the middle of nowhere, at the bottom of the world, is able to supply the entire planet milk powder. And we're not able to do it from Kenya or from Uganda or from Rwanda or Tanzania. And there are many reasons for that. And I don't want to go into everything, but I think all three of the speakers touched on things. I mean, Kenya did put in place some public policies which were to prevent importation of milk from other countries. But even having said that, we're still working at a loss. When my last ever presentation, I think in dairy around 6 years ago, South Africa was making 3 times more money, but producing half the amount of milk. Part of that is because they are large scale farming as opposed to small scale. There are small scale farmers there, but in Kenya, we are predominantly, and Uganda and the rest of the East African countries, it's predominantly small scale. But the other thing, I think Vanessa touched on it, there's a lack of business understanding. I've seen a lot of NGOs and a lot of people coming in to work with the agricultural community and the dairy farmers, but I think they're never left with an understanding of route to market and what that entails and the cost that entails, how much investment that would take. The machines that you were talking about, Fomba, I agree with you. Many people here are continuing to work this way. In the dairy industry, it's necessary, I think, to have more equipment to do things, but they're afraid of investment because they don't understand the business process. So I think the other aspect you touched on was rain-fed agriculture. I remember being up in Nyandarua, which is a farming community, a dairy milk shed here in Kenya, and they were saying to me, oh, but we didn't have rain for 5 weeks or something. And I said to them, you know, I worked in Sweden where they had snow for 6 months, but they were still able to produce. Whether it's producing in the same way we produce in Africa, it's not relevant, I think, because it's about management and it's about managing our elements and managing our knowledge base here. We have, I think Kenya, for an example, along with possibly South Africa, has the best conditions on the planet for dairy farming. The best. I have worked in 60 countries in dairy. Kenya undoubtedly is the best country for that. However, we are losing. We are losing huge amounts of money in post-harvest losses. And I think that's really important because we are certainly not managing the amount of production that we have. I can only talk from the dairy value chain. I know that all of you have different value chains that you're working with, especially Fomba and Vanessa, but I think it's so important. So many things you touched on. I thought, my goodness, I was talking about this 15 and 20 years ago, and you're still talking about it. So why aren't we doing something to change it? So this forum is extremely exciting because I would like to see that out of this, Zaynah, something concrete would come in the way of helping people, local farmers, to understand the business aspect of these value chains and supply chains. The other thing I also talked about many, many years ago was the nutritional value of feed going into the feed for cows, bringing again a better quality of milk. And you touched on that, Vanessa. I think it was Vanessa who touched on that. And I think that is vitally important to get that right in Africa, because if you don't, you will not get your yields, you will not get your money. You need to have money if you want to be sustainable. So I think the public policies are one thing. In Kenya, we stopped imports, but I think I wrote a public policy document for Tanzania about 15 years ago because 13 of their milk processors collapsed. But then when I went to every supermarket in Tanzania, they were importing from Zambia, from South Africa, from Dubai, and from Egypt, which meant that the local farmers didn't have a leg to stand on. So public policy has to be in place. And I think Kenya did that effectively. However, you still need good quality competition to stimulate the local production, I think. We can't just ban everything. There has to be a level of something coming in, I think, that drives that need to want to be better. If so-and-so is doing it in Zambia or South Africa, why can't we do it? And let's just try and beat that competition. So I think I think in Kenya, we open up doors, I think, throughout the year when we have low milk supply for other brands to come in from other countries. So I think there is a little bit of flexibility. But I just wanted to reiterate again that I loved every one of your presentations. It was close to my heart and to where I come from with my dairy farming background and my love for Africa. I'm married to a Kenyan, and we've always said that we want to see this continent grow. But so many things have to be put in place. All of you are aware of what has to be put in place. I think now, judging from your presentations, it's just a question of now where we take it from here. How do we put these things in place? How do we educate?
Actually, our call on Friday is going to address that specifically. Kelly, you have added so much value to this conversation from the dairy perspective. Kelly's actually an winning entrepreneur. She was awarded by Kofi Annan and Mary Robinson for her efforts in the dairy value chain system while she was working with Tetra Pak. So you can just see the wealth of knowledge and experience that comes with her words, and also in her contribution to this platform as a South Women Pioneer influencer. Safia, I know you've had your hand up for some time, so Safia, and then we'll have Mary Zomo. Please go ahead.
I think we lost her.
I think Safia's there. Are you trying to unmute, Safia? Maybe Mary Nzomo, you can go in the meanwhile.
Okay, thank you, Zaynah, for organizing this very important meeting. I wanted to make my contribution by just maybe adding a few areas where I feel there are opportunities and also gaps that can be addressed when it comes to developing agriculture. And I wanted to start with the issue of unlocking their productivity, because you realize most of the African farmers, the productivity is so low. So we are looking at technologies and innovations, what we call the teams, technology innovation management practices that our farmers can adopt so that they can unlock their productivity. And this one, we are even looking at the whole arena of digital technology, because that one has not been exploited. Some of the reasons why our farmers' productivity is low is because they have no access to agriculture information, and I think the digital technology has not been exploited fully in Africa. And of course, we have the issue of the climate change, and this is one area where we have not addressed it well, and it's compromising agriculture production. Conservation agriculture is an area that we really need to develop. Irrigation, it has been mentioned here, very poorly developed, yet we have a lot of water resources in Africa. The research and development, and I know a number of African countries are yet to adopt biotechnology, and I'm seeing there is room for biotechnology to be promoted to take care of some of the emerging pests and diseases. And I'm happy to specifically talk about Kenya, because already we've opened up the space for BT cotton, BT cassava, and even BT maize is slowly picking up. And of course, the other problem we have in Africa is that our products are not differentiated. I know in Africa, we consume a lot of cereals and pulses. And when you talk about maize, what maize are we producing? I had an opportunity to visit Argentina, and I realized their corn is differentiated. There is corn for livestock feeding, corn for oil, corn for poultry feeds, but in Africa, maize is maize. So there is an opportunity to differentiate these products so that we can access the different niche markets. And of course, I wanted to talk about now the growing population. The demand for agricultural products is growing day by day because you have population explosion in Africa. And there is now an opportunity under the food and nutrition security promotion, because previously we were talking about food security without the nutrition aspect. There is an opportunity in flour blending, where we want to look at maize and what else can go with it. And already, like in Kenya, some standards have been approved, where maize can be blended with sorghum, finger millet, cassava, sweet potatoes. And I see this as a huge opportunity because there's even a policy on the same. And going forward, all millers will be required to blend the maize with either of those products. And of course, our soils are high in acidity levels. And of course, in terms of now even the nutrient content. And I see a big opportunity for blended multi-nutrient fertilizers. And a few people have tried to penetrate the market for the blended fertilizers. And we see an opportunity in Africa because most of the products for blending these fertilizers are imported. And yet we have a rich mineral resource in Africa, which is not exploited. So if people can come and mine some of those nutrients from right here in Africa, this is a big opportunity for fertilizer manufacture, and this area has not been penetrated well. The other area I also wanted to talk about is the youth involvement in agriculture. And I'm happy that in Kenya right now, there are policies that are promoting the issue of youth involvement. There is a youth in agribusiness strategy. There's even now the Enable Youth project that is offering opportunities to our young people. And I would say our young farmers now are very good people to target because when it comes to innovations, technologies, they take them up very easily. They are risk takers, and these are people that we can easily target. And of course, we lack incentives on subsidies, markets, Most of what we produce is not market oriented. And we also have this broad area on post-harvest losses. Somebody has just mentioned here, we lose about 30% of what we produce. So any technology that can help us manage our post-harvest losses, that would be an area that somebody can get into and make a breakthrough in that. And of course,
Mary,
machinery, the last one now.
Is this the last one?
Yeah.
Out of time. Okay.
Yeah, on mechanization, you realize that most of the African farmers are small-scale farmers, but the machinery that is available in the market mainly favors the large-scale farmers. So we are looking at equipment and machinery that can now cater for the small-scale farmers. And I'm talking about like now the working tractors that can work on 1 acre, 2 acre piece of land. I think this is one segment that has not been addressed well. So I just wanted to bring out those issues that I thought are also gaps and also opportunities that can be addressed when it comes to investing in agriculture.
Perfect. And I think it's evident the wealth of knowledge and information that we have within this forum and how pressing it is for us to come up with the solutions. And so what I would, first, I want to say that we are out of time. We're in fact 6 minutes over. And I'm sorry that it has to be time that brings this conversation to a close because there are several questions asked and yet to be answered, which our commitment is that we will answer these questions amongst the speakers and send them back to you in written form in our response as a response to a thank you for participating in this forum. So I hope that that's okay for the people who have asked the questions. We have taken note. Each one of them will be answered to the degree that they deserve to be answered, and we will put them in an email that goes out to everybody, and we can continue to engage from that point. We did want to run a poll very, very quickly because it was important for us to know how well we've served you today and what else we can bring to the table for you. I hope that there will be more opportunities for us to create specific agribusiness forums where we can actually focus a lot more on solution-based responses and also opportunities for coming together to have those solutions work. But the poll is in front of you. Please do respond. It will help us to determine how to serve you and your interests better for future collaborations. We'll close the poll in 2 minutes. I don't get a sense on this side if actually the questions have been answered. Have you been filling in the responses?
Yes, I just did.
Okay. All right. So I'll close the poll now. Thank you for your responses.
Thank you. It was a very interesting presentation, and my name is Doreen Buchanan. I am from Jamaica, and I have lived in Southern Africa in Botswana, so I'm quite aware of South Africa, and pretty much, you know, in tune with what's going on across Africa. I'm also the owner of Jamaica Diaspora Global Magazine.
Thank you so much, Doreen, for being here today. And with your presence, I hope that we can look forward to more opportunities to engage around solutions. And a lot of it does sound like it would be around legacy building in Africa.
Indeed, indeed. And that is very important.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing your voice.
You're most welcome.
So I will invite you all now to unmute yourselves and say goodbye in the language of your choice as we newly acknowledge our presenters and also the ILE, Dr. Rosalie Hamilton and Merging Mundos for this collaboration.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Hello,
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for this great presentation.
No,
Hi, Nina. Who do we have there?
Hi. Doing
Zaynah,
well.
that was excellent. Excellent session.
It was really, really nice.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Crystal. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you. It was so
Thanks,
fantastic. I had a really good time. Great information.
Fomba,
I will connect
bye.
with you.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Very-
Zaynah.
Share the presentations, please. Zaynah,
Yes.
share the presentations, please.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Chamber.
Cheers, Zaynah. Bye.
Oh,
Okay.
where was this hiding?
Thank you.
All right, Trevor.
Take care.
All the best.
Appreciated it. Have a nice day.
All right, we catch up. Hi.
Pleasure to see you over there. Hello.
I love it. We have people from all over the world.
How are you?
Afternoon.
That's
Yeah,
the
thank you
first
so much.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good
Yeah,
afternoon.
Bye. Take care, all. It's a pleasure to add me onto the group.
Good afternoon.
Good
Yeah,
afternoon.
Hey, Pastor
I am-
Tutu.
I am
Yeah,
from
Mr.
Trinidad
Brown, how are you?
and
Good, good.
I am from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean.
Ah.
I joined your meeting
Pleasure
very,
to
very
meet all of you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you too. Thank you too.
All
Is
right.
the meeting over? Is the meeting
Where are you
over?
in the Caribbean?
Over. Oh, are you?
Is it over or is it ongoing?
Sierra Leone, we are in Sierra Leone.
Um,
I'm in
next
Sierra
week,
Leone.
yeah, within the next 2 weeks, I'll be in Sierra Leone.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
All right, okay.
God bless you. Yeah.
Say hi
Yeah.
to all the farmers. Say I will
Oh,
bring
yes,
them
I
to-
will, I will. I
All
will.
right. All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then.
So, hi, morning. Is the meeting over? Is this the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Yes, sorry you came late. Where are you in? You're from the Caribbean. Where are you?
I am from